students from doing the necessary work on their progressive agendas. During the meeting before, we were told to prepare questions for Dr. Casilius, and most, if not all, of our questions were watered down and sugar-coated. God forbid we asked her anything that made her look incompetent or challenged her authority. As someone who left Boston's Mayor's Youth Council in search of a group that undeniably worked in the best intentions of our students, it is clear that I did not find what I was looking for at BSAC. I am grateful to have not directly experienced the inappropriate and disgusting behaviors and boundary crossing exhibited by adult staff such as Jenny Sazama. I feel tremendously sorry for my peers who have been made victims by these people and are too afraid to speak up. I hope that the failures of BSAC are clear-cut after hearing from former BSAC members. From the amazing Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley, the people closest to the pain need to be closest to the power. Students have never been closest to the power. The function of the Boston Student Advisory Council compares to the function of its district. It lacks communication, transparency, youth thinking, and youth implementation. It is clear that the adult staff behind BSAC would rather keep their jobs than act in the best interest of students. And what is most disheartening is that they have failed at their jobs terribly. Within BSAC, students are actively fighting oppression with the oppressors, and I can no longer work within an infrastructure that is meant to oppress me. As of Thursday, I am no longer a member of BSAC because I refuse to be silenced by the very adults who are supposed to give me a platform to speak. Not speaking the truth reinforces oppression, adultism, discrimination, and ageism. It allows us to believe it is our normal. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not normal. Thank you. I will now pass it to my colleague, Ms. Igalo.
Thank you, Ms. Wade. Hello, everyone. My name is Ajmi Igalo, and I am a former BSAC representative for Boston Latin Academy. We are here today because adults continue to perpetuate a power dynamic that excludes our predominantly colored youth from not just having a voice, but an impact at the table. Throughout this experience, I've come to realize that we were never asking for too much. We were just asking the wrong people. That is why almost half of BSAC has decided to part ways and use their talents and passion where they are appreciated. Talking about morals with people who have none is a journey of dead ends. And since the skeletons in their closet have chased me away, I realized that I could never look back because I never planned to head in that direction. Time and time again, the leadership staff have been known for using their misfortunes as a way to guilt trip people into compliance. Daniel Hackett taught me that contextualization does not excuse immorality. Mind you, all of this is happening during Black History Month, but let me be focused. Everyone knows that if you want something you've never had, you have to do something you've never done. Although people try to placate us when we put two and two together, as Saeed Jones said, a nice dinner in a burning house is not a meal that I want to eat. And that is why I had to leave others in it by themselves. How can I work with a predator conducting a cult in her basement and then on Zoom? I can't believe this was happening right under people's noses. A little research would have revealed the truth, and she wasn't a licensed therapist anyway. She had no right, and people watched her violate all that is good and sacred about a child's mental health. My colleagues, friends, and peers did not deserve this. This is a result of neglect. Not enough questions were asked, and a predator was allowed to recruit vulnerable youth into a cult. No one will ever be able to understand how deep these experiences lie in the children that survived it. And had this resulted in adolescents being manipulated into doing illegal, harmful things, this would be a headline all over the country. That is why BSAC must be vanquished. The transgressions that occurred were brought to light, and the superiors of Jenny Sazama and Maria Estrada have yet to take action. There are 2 days until the next meeting. What are they waiting for? These revelations have fallen on deaf ears, and Boston needs to clean house. I yield my time.
Thank you, Ms. Pizarro. What you are witnessing is what Representative Ocasio-Cortez once referred to as the downfall of the broken way. Had students been in charge, these staff persons would have been fired and their salaries split among students for reparations, period. There needs to be accountability like we've never seen before. And students must not only be the ones to deliver it, but create an entirely different infrastructure that is unequivocally pro-student and pro-student impact. And my colleagues and I will be mobilizing across the city, middle school to high school, to ensure youth are informed, engaged, and ready to make change long after we are gone. The student representative on the school committee must receive a vote and a stipend. The current appointed school committee structure must be abolished. BPS officials, including Brenda Casilius, must be held to the highest ethical and educational standards to truly support Black and brown students or be removed from their positions immediately. And lastly, students must be given more than half of the seats at the table because it is clear that many of the adults in power are unqualified and incompetent and incapable of meeting the expectations of their positions. This is the dawn of a new era. Students will no longer sit by while adults disrespect them and play into these oppressive systems. I want you to hear everything that you heard today. I want you to play it back to yourselves. There was a brewing cult in the Boston Student Advisory Council. And furthermore, these individuals, these staff, were oppressing the voices of progressive students who were looking to make a change in their society. This isn't only terrible for students, but it's terrible for parents. And once again, even though it is not my responsibility nor place, I want to say that I sincerely apologize on behalf of Boston Public Schools to tax-paying families and guardians for what the district has put your children through. With that being said, my team will now come up and we will take questions. Thank you.
How many BSAC members have resigned?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
How many BSAC members have resigned?
As of the count on Friday morning, 12 members have resigned and more are contemplating it. There's about 35 members of there's about 35 active BSAC members.
Thank you for sharing your stories this morning. Could you please contextualize for us what you're describing in terms of reevaluation, counseling? What was the forum, and how did it work? And please let us know if you're speaking from your own firsthand experience or if it's from what others have told you.
Okay, so from first-hand experience, the whole concept of RC was a space where you could feel safe to speak about whatever you felt like, or just to let out emotions, whether it be work-wise, home-wise, or personal. And when going to BSAC, it is first told that RC is optional, and it's not required to go in any way, shape, or form if you don't feel comfortable doing so. But as a lot have shared, as I have experienced, it is more forced upon you, even if you have made it abundantly clear that you do not want to participate for whatever reason, personal or external.
So
You
it's
will
like
get
it's like something that it's something separate than your meetings about
yes.
affairs.
Yes, so like there's BSAC and then there's RC, which is led by Jenny from Youth on Board, which doesn't even take place in the Bowden building where BSAC meetings take place. It takes place in her house. So that alone is like, not only will it be like inconvenient to travel to a third, not only is it inconvenient to travel to a third party, so like a lot of people don't feel comfortable going to somebody else's home when that's not really the environment or relationship that you have with her. From my experience, that's how I felt. I did not feel comfortable going to somebody else's house to speak on emotions that I feel like didn't need to be elaborated on. But I did go because I felt there was a lot of pressure to go. So in my experience of going, I felt like we were constantly pushed to elaborate on emotions that one didn't have, or elaborate on things that you don't feel comfortable elaborating on, which was just completely disrespectful to the person that you are emotionally, and just invading your personal privacy that you do not want to share. It was like also like commonly recommended to cry, even if you don't feel like, to just be like, crying is okay, it's okay to cry. Like, I understand crying is okay, but if you don't feel like crying, you do not have to.
I'd like to just add on to that question, and anyone of my colleagues would like to add on as well. This, in no doubt, was a cult. Like my colleague Ajni Garo mentioned earlier, a little bit of research into reevaluation counseling will give you not only the breadth and depth, but also the history, the academic research, the evaluations, the analysis by academic scholars of what this was and how it was used against people, and how the founder, Harvey Jenkins, ended up discovering it and executing it across the world. Tactics used by Jenkins in the 1950s through 60s included, as I mentioned earlier, from my source, rc.org, credited by also other websites as well. These were tactics such as forcing people to cry, forcing people to display body behavior that released emotion. These were tactics that students have testified to, that have been used by cult leader Cesara in the space. And out of respect for those students, again, we will not be sharing any of their personal anecdotes, nor do we want to. But several students here, and Ms. Adams and Ms. Hell can go next, have nearly experienced and was lucky enough to escape this cult space before it could reach the point of her traumatic experiences being used against her.
Yeah, just to clarify, RC happens on Wednesdays, 4 to 6, with Jenny Suzama and led by another staff. When I would go in, clearly I wanted to go in because it was like, I'm hanging with more BSAC students. It's going to be a mental environment. People can get a bit vulnerable if they'd like to, but not because they're forced to or they feel like they need to in order to be accepted into the space. And I feel like a lot of people, due to the way Jenny Suzama was like running it, it felt as though if you didn't have anything personal to say, don't come. Because everything in that space was vulnerable, like very heavy. I mean, sometimes I felt like I had to have really heavy experiences, and I was very close to sharing a very personal experience I had back in December, but I had chosen not to. All I could share about was just how tough the weeks were getting, how much work I had, in hopes that like no one would remember my trauma and no one would mention it later. So yeah, it was very scary in a way to think that if I were to share something, it wouldn't stay within that space. And I'm just very fortunate to have not shared as much. You can't trust things. You can't trust strangers. So thank you.
How does RC fit into the mission of the Boston student?
Great question. So I think that would be a very interesting question for the staff of BSAC, but I will try to answer it from their perspective. So for anyone who didn't answer the question, who didn't hear the question, how does RC fit into the mission of the Boston Student Advisory Council? Some of my colleagues say that it doesn't, but adult staff may argue that, RC promotes emotional wellness, and, we're listening to our students, and we're building connections, and we're building sort of bonds between BSAC members. It's another space, essentially, for BSAC members to come together and bond closer. However, we are disputing these arguments unequivocally. This was not a space for BSAC members to come together and bond. This was a space for cult leader Cesama to collect and use information on students in the future to coerce and manipulate them to doing whatever she wanted, whether that meant retaining membership on BSAC, going to more meetings, or simply not disagreeing with the staff whenever there was heated debates between students and staff. Next question.
What is the financial relationship
Yes, so Youth on Board, also known as Youth Build, is considered a donor and partner of BSAC. Usually when you see BSAC representatives or staff appear before the public or in public forums, you will see their name on the Zoom world, or they will tell you in person that they are YOB/BSAC. They are essentially one of the same. The staff in BSAC are all paid by Youth Build.
I also just want to add that that person is in a position of power because she's the
Co-founder.
she's the co-founder of YOB, and she was the one donating to BSAC. And so she was able to work with kids just out of that obligation and abuse them. And that's why I consider her a predator. Because she wouldn't be able to do this among adults for one, and then she used her position to work with kids and maintain a position of power over them.
Any other questions?
Does the city pay Youth Build to provide this program for BSAC?
Does the city pay Youth Build to provide this program to BSAC? We are not aware of that answer, but we would love to know the answer if you could find out.
How long has RC been going on?
I joined BSAC January of 2020, and I actually spoke with an alumni that graduated in 2018. I will not be disclosing their information, but they had told me that RC was going on while they were there. So I would like to believe, to my knowledge at least, that it's been going on for the past about 4 to 5 years. And I'm sure that if you were to find much more older alumni, you would be able to dig and understand that this cult was happening for longer than 5 years.
Were there consequences for not participating in RC?
Not to my knowledge, not to my colleague, well, just the
The consequences weren't really physical, but more emotional consequences, where if you didn't attend, you would get text messages, making you feel as if you are wrong for not wanting to go into the space and like either listen or share it. It made you feel as if you were like, maybe like an outcast, or like you weren't willing to let people in. It really just like criminalized you as a person for not wanting to be in this space because it was really set on this is a safe space. If you don't want to be in a safe space, then what is wrong with you? Those were the consequences that would really happen. Or if you didn't go, it would just like some people, they would get contacted constantly where it felt like going to RC was a requirement of the job, even if it wasn't.
What are the other parts of the so we can understand how it sort of collaborates and the broader context of the responsibilities of the
Well, as a hi, yes. So
rights and student votes, student culture and climate, and environmental justice. I was a part of the student rights and student votes where we worked on exam school initiatives, bathroom equity, and met with countless departments in BPS. I need it to be known that students are there as a checkbox so that BPS and the district can say that they hear student thinking and that they bring them there for implementation of different policies when that is simply not the case.
I would like to go back to a previous question that I asked, the consequences of not attending the RC. Now, for some people, not attending RC simply meant that we were making less dollars on our paycheck, as it was a requirement for some of our, I guess you could say, outside commitments to participate within RC to have hours put into our tracker. Now, it comes to, with this thought now, it comes to no surprise that it was Jen who presented the idea that RC be implemented into the schedule to further on specify it was Jane Fernandez, actually, who suggested that RC be implemented into this space. And with that, it also came to the fact that if I do not attend RC, I'm not getting paid the full amount of what I owe or what I deserve. And that's just a little bit for that. I will say that Charlotte Harris also has been in a similar position as me and her, we're the same team that caused this. Yeah.
I need everyone to understand that BSAC takes up the majority of students' days throughout the week, making most BSAC members unable to get outside jobs, Mondays, Thursdays, and then outside requirements and commitments. This means students are counting on the paychecks that they get from BSAC, so of course they would incentivize other outside commitments and tell students that they're getting paid for it. You can only imagine the pressure students felt to go to outside commitments because, of course, students need that money.
And I just want to add before we take more questions that, again, I do want to reiterate, research this, please. This could be your child. This could have been my child. This could have been the city councilor's child. Again, this could have been your child in a space, in a cult, where reevaluation counseling, a facelift psychotherapy that was practiced in the mid-1900s was used. This is insidious. Question?
Mr. James, on your Twitter page, you said because you resigned as a BSAC head, that forced you to have to resign from the Boston School Committee. Any word on what's going to happen to the student representative position on the Boston School Committee?
Thank you, Ms. Hinton, for that question. So, because I was told by staff that my position on BSAC was tied to school committee, and because of infrastructure within school committee that were simply anti-student, I had to resign from both posts. I do not know what is going to happen with the next student representative on the Boston School Committee, but I will say this. My predecessors warned me that I would feel this way, and that speaks volumes. And I say this to whoever the next student representative is, and to school committee members, and to the district as a whole. The student representative will never truly be welcome into that space if they are not given a vote, same compensation, and the same treatment as other committee members. But furthermore, other committee members can never give students the actual respect and urgency and energy that they deserve because they don't feel any allegiance to them. They were appointed by a mayor. There needs to be a change in the school committee structure that actually is composed of adults who feel the deep, honorable connection and devotion to the students of Boston.
Thank you.
Can I ask everybody to try their name, please?
Yes, my name is spelled K-H-Y-M-A-N-I, that's Kamani, and then James, J-A-M-E-S.
My name is Naesoj Ware, that's Naesojware, again, Naesojware. I'm a junior at the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science.
My name is Ajane Gado, spelled Ajaneigharo. Again, Ajaneigharo. I am a junior at Boston Latin Academy.
My name is Daniel Morales. That is Daniel, Danyal, and that is Morales, Morales. Once more, it is Daniel, Danyal, Morales, Morales, and I am a freshman at Boston Latin Academy.
Alright, I'd just like to give y'all a minute. My name is Charlene Adams Pimentel. My last name is hyphenated. Charlene. Once again, my first name is Charlene. My last name is Adames Pimentel. Adames with a hyphen. Pimentel. Once again, my last name is Adames hyphen Pimentel. And I am a senior at Boston Latin Academy. Thank you. My name is Justine Deslinas. First name Justine. Last name Desssalines. Again, last name Desssalines. I'm a junior at Tech Boston Academy.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So prior to this moment, has anyone made a complaint about RC, either district or any other outside body like BSAC or?
As of right now, well, I can let Charlene.
Do you mind repeating the question again?
Yeah, my question was, had anyone prior to this moment here made a formal complaint to either the district or other outside levels or agency
About RC?
Yeah.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
And then, do you mind explaining, like, how you become a member of the
Of BSAC? Well, it's actually a really confusing process regarding how even I got on. I feel like Kamani, you're better at explaining that.
Yeah, so the process, technically, the structure, is supposed to be that schools elect members of the Boston Student Advisory Council. However, I have been told by the staff, and this is well known amongst the representatives on BSAC, that in the past several years, schools have not elected representatives to the Boston Student Advisory Council. Instead, it has been almost a volunteering position where students simply say, well, they find out about it, they sort of go, and they say, I want to be part of BSAC, and then you're formally invited to meetings, added on chain emails, reminders, etc. It's a very informal process. That is not the same as what the structural written process is supposed to be.
I just want to add that most students don't even know what BSAC is. I'm a junior and I only learned about what BSAC is last June because of being close friends with Kamani, and that's another problem. Like, nobody is aware that these spaces for students to speak out are there. And then if you do happen to go, things like this happen.
I can speak as a student from the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics and Science. Our entire student council is expected to join BSAC as a requirement of their participation in student council. And I think I also need to make it clear that every one of us are given different information about the requirements to be on BSAC, which is sad. As someone who hoped of assuming my colleague Mr. Ding's position as student representative next year, I was told that I needed to join BSAC to do that. When I got to BSAC and spoke to adult staff, Maria Estrada, she made it clear that you did not need to be a part of BSAC to be a student representative. However, They preferred for the student representative to be a part of BSAC because they had more knowledge about the internal structures of BSAC.
Yes, I want to emphasize what Ms. Ware mentioned. I was personally told by staff of BSAC that you had to be a member of BSAC in order to be the student representative on the Boston School Committee. Hence why I inevitably had to resign both of my posts since I resigned from the Boston Student Advisory Council.
What is the compensation?
The compensation, that's a good question. So, as of this year, a lot of members, a majority of BSAC members, are on the city's payroll, also known as Success Link. We are given 10 hours a week, so 20 hours total bi-weekly pay with minimum wage. And there are certain members who are on youth bills or YOB's payroll as advocates, and they're given, I believe, anywhere between 5 and 7 hours a week, and they are paid on a weekly basis through youth bills, as was I last summer when I worked with the Boston Student Advisory Council.
Do you have any examples of where something shared our team was like disclosed without your permission to people on the outside?
So this past Thursday was our last meeting, and we heard, it was a closed-door private meeting where we will not share any of the information that was released due to privacy reasons and concerns. However, there were many testimonies by students that did exemplify their traumas being used against them that was gained in RC later in the BSAC space.
I just want to add that the superiors of Maria Estrada and Jenny Sedano were there to witness most of these testimonies. That is why I call on them to resign, to make them resign, or like fire them, and maybe even resign themselves.
Any other questions?
I'm really sorry, that was Maria Estrada.
Yes, Maria Estrada is the program director of BSAC. Cheney Zazama is the co-founder of Youth on Board, and because they are partners and donors, they are both the lead staff of the program, along with other junior staff as well.
Who runs RC?
Who runs RC? I personally had never been to RC. At the beginning of the year, Jenny Zazama made it clear, actually, that it was a requirement for BSAC students to attend RC 3 to 4 times a year. Because of my responsibilities with school committee, and especially it landing on Wednesday, RC landing on Wednesday, but I also had school committee, had to prepare. I was fortunate enough